So first, we'll discuss a quick introduction about Playwright and what are the amazing features Playwright offers. Once we install Playwright, let us learn how to run the sample test locally with different browsers offered by Playwright. People who are working for the NPM based project for the first time, package.json is nothing but the dependency management file for your project, and also this file will help you to mention what is the scripts to be run. So playwright config.ts will hold all the default configuration of Playwright. Whatever the configurations you have to do which should reflect in the project will be given in the playwright config.ts. So how to get the Lambda test username and access key. Hello everyone, welcome you all to Lambda test. I'm your instructor Vignesh. I'm super excited to start a new playlist on Playwright with TypeScript. So let us see what is the agenda as part of this video. So these are the topics which we are going to discuss as part of this video. So first, we'll discuss a quick introduction about Playwright and what are the amazing features Playwright offers. Then we will see how to install Playwright in our machine. Once we install Playwright, let us learn how to run the sample test locally with different browsers offered by Playwright. Then we'll have a quick introduction about what is Lambda test, and we'll see how to integrate Playwright with Lambda test, and we'll see how to use the Dotenv file to organize the environmental variables. Now let us quickly jump into the topic on what is Playwright. For people who don't know what is Playwright is an open source web automation framework developed by Microsoft. So Playwright is an open source tool, and mainly it is used for the web automation, and it is created by Microsoft. It is a Node.js library automation tool. So what it means by that, if you want to use Playwright, you have to download it as part of the npm or node package manager, and you can start using them. Playwright is written in TypeScript. This is super important to note that Playwright as a tool has been written in TypeScript, but if you want to code in Java or JavaScript or even .NET, Playwright supports for that. But the tool has been written in TypeScript. Now let us see what are the amazing key features Playwright offers. The first most important key feature is cross-browser support. This is one of the unique USP of Playwright, where it stands out among all the other automation tools such as Selenium or Cypress, where Playwright supports all modern rendering engines including Chromium, WebKit and Firefox. By looking into this, you can get a question, Vignesh, we know Chrome, but what is Chromium? So Chromium is nothing but an underlying engine for all the famous browsers such as Chrome, Opera, Brave. So all of these individual browsers inherently using this Chromium browser. So Playwright supports this Chromium browser, which means if your test passes in Chromium, which means it will pass in Chrome or Brave or Opera. Similarly, what is WebKit? WebKit is nothing but an underlying engine for the Safari. So the Mac OS uses Safari browser, so that has been built on top of the WebKit browser, and Firefox, which we already know of. So all these three different browsers are being supported by Playwright. Then second most important key feature is cross-platform. By using Playwright, you can do the coding being in Windows machine, Linux machine or even a Mac OS machine. Also, the Playwright can install very easily in locally in your machine or even in your CI. Let's say you have Jenkins or GitHub Actions, be it any CI, Playwright will be able to accommodate with it, and it can run the test both in the headless and headed manner. Next, the most important feature is cross-language. As I mentioned earlier, Playwright is been built on TypeScript, but you can code test in Playwright by using TypeScript, JavaScript, Python, .NET and Java. The next most important feature is reliable automation. Playwright handles flakiness in browsers, ensuring stable and consistent automation. One of the key most important pain point which everyone faces when doing the web automation is the flakiness. What it means by that? For example, if the test trying to run on a page where the page is not loaded fully, then it might end up resulting in a failure. But Playwright handles all of this flakiness by default. You don't have to write any unwanted auto wait or something like that. All of them are taken care by Playwright as by default. Next is enhanced debugging. So by using the Playwright, you can easily debug automation code with detailed error message and inspection tools. So whenever there is a failure, Playwright will give you utmost details of why it failed with proper error messages, with screenshots and videos, which will help you to debug it much better. Next, we will see the next set of key features. The important another key feature is auto wait. Playwright waits for an element to be actionable prior to performing actions. This is super important when we are doing web automation. As I mentioned earlier, the other tools such as, let's say, if we are taking Selenium will not wait by default for an element to load, but Playwright will wait for an element to load. Let's say if you have wanted to click a button, so it will wait until the button turning to be in a clickable position, then it will do the operation on top of that. Next is web first accessions. Playwright accessions are created specifically for the dynamic web. So when you're working with Playwright, you don't need to install any third-party accession library such as Chai or something, because Playwright has all the needed accessions by itself. Next is Trace Weaver. Using Trace Weaver in Playwright, we can capture all the information to investigate the test failure. So whenever our test fails, Playwright will give something called as a Trace Weaver. So basically what this Trace Weaver file will contain is, it will contain step-by-step process it did to complete the test, along with the screenshots, along with the DOM and everything, so that it is easy for us to debug further. Next, another important feature in Playwright is code gen. So code gen means code generation. So by using Playwright, we can generate tests by recording your actions in doing the browser. So let's say if I'm new to Playwright and I don't know how to write a Playwright test by using TypeScript or JavaScript or be it any language, Playwright even offers something called as code generation, which is means by that you open your browser, whatever the actions you do, Playwright will capture those actions and will convert it into your Playwright test. And the last key feature is Playwright Inspector. This Playwright Inspector is super helpful in terms of inspecting the page and even to generate the select task, and also it guides a step-by-step process on how the execution happened in terms of the DOM. So this will be super helpful when we are debugging the test. Also it will be helpful for us to do a code generation, also to record the locators for this. So this is what Playwright is and the amazing key features offered by Playwright. Now let us see how to install Playwright and execute the sample test. In my system, I created an empty folder and the folder name is quick start playwright with lambda test, and I'm going to open this folder in my VS Code. So before starting with the installation of Playwright, there are two prerequisites which needs to be in your machine. The first prerequisite is you need to have an IDE. You can use any IDE like VS Code, IntelliJ of your choice, but I personally prefer to go with VS Code because it has much compatible with JavaScript or TypeScript projects. So that's the first requirement which you need to have in your machine. So here you can see I have my Visual Studio Code and I have opened the empty folder in this VS Code. And the second prerequisite is you need to have Node installed. Why, Vignesh, we need to have the Node installed? Because as I mentioned earlier, Playwright is a Node.js library, which means you need to have the Node installed in your machine in order to download and work with the Playwright. So installing Node is pretty simple. Go to Google, type Node.js install, and then install the exe file if you're using Windows, or install the DMG file if you're using Mac, and then click on next, and you can install the Node. So how to check if the Node is installed in your machine? So either open terminal within the VS Code, or you can open a command prompt in your laptop. So let's say if I'm opening my terminal here, so I click on this three dots, I click on terminal, I click on new terminal. So if I install Node properly, the command which I'm going to enter should give me the Node version. So let us wait until the terminal comes up. Once the terminal comes up, I'm going to show what is the command to open the terminal. So here type as node space -v. So the command is node space -v. If I click on enter, you can see it is giving me the version 18.16.0. Similarly, if I type npm space -v, it should give me the npm version installed. So you don't have to install npm separately, that will come under the node installation itself. So when I click on npm -v, I should be getting the npm version, which is 9.5.1. which means I have both the prerequisites ready in my system. Now let me clear the console, and now let us start with the installation of Playwright. Installing Playwright is very simple. It just requires 4 or 5 steps, and that's it. You will be done with the installation. So let me write the command to install the Playwright. So in the terminal, write as npm init playwright @latest. Let me zoom in so you can note this down. So the command is npm space init space playwright @latest, which means install me the latest version of Playwright. Now when I click on enter, it will be asking me 3-4 questions. I have to answer for those 3-4 questions. Let us see what all those questions are. All the questions are related to the Playwright's configuration. What language do I need? Where should I put my end-to-end test? Like that, all are related to the Playwright thing. So the first question it asks is, do you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript? So let's say I'm going to go with the TypeScript because this playlist is about Playwright with TypeScript. So I'm going to click on enter, and next it is asking where to put your end-to-end test. So the default folder, it will put the end-to-end test under tests folder. So I'm going to go with the default one. So I'm clicking on enter. It is asking, do we need a GitHub Actions workflow? I don't have any GitHub Actions workflow, so I'm going to skip it by clicking on false. And last is, do you want to install Playwright browsers? So what it means by that? So whenever you install Playwright, it will also install the corresponding browsers as the 3 browsers as I mentioned in the introduction, which is Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. So I want it to be installed, so I click on enter. So now you can see it is initializing the npm project, and once it initializes the npm project, it will automatically download all the Playwright related things. So let us wait until the Playwright is being downloaded. Once it finished downloads, we can walk through what are the folder structure it has created, and then we can run the sample test. So now you can see it initialized the project. Once it finished initializing, you can see it is installing the Playwright. So it can take up maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds, depends on your mission and your internet speed, obviously, because it needs to download the Playwright from the npm.js website. So let us wait until it finished downloading. So the Playwright has been downloaded successfully. Here you can say that everything is downloaded and happy hacking. So this is the default folder structure Playwright gives. So let me quickly walk you through what is the folder structure here. So the node modules is the folder where you can see all the dependencies which get downloaded. And the next folder structure is test, as it mentioned in the starting itself, that this is where it's gonna hold all the end-to-end test cases. So Playwright will also give you a sample test case during the installation itself, which will help us to get started with Playwright. So here you can see it gave us a file called example.spec.ts, which is a sample test file. Similarly, it also has one more folder called test example, which means in case if you don't want to go with the default folder as test, you will be creating some standalone folder like this, and within that also it has a demo test. So next is it has the git ignore. So basically Playwright, when it installs, it moves all the unwanted things such as node modules, test results, Playwright report, and all those things to the git ignore. Then we have the package JSON and package log JSON. So people who are working for the npm based project for the first time, package JSON is nothing but the dependency management file for your project, and also this file will help you to mention what is the scripts to be run, many like that. We will see much detail in our upcoming videos. So basically package.json, if I scroll down, you can see it has 2 dependencies. One is the Playwright test, which is the Playwright which we installed, and next is the types node, which is basically a ground for the TypeScript code to execute. And the last most important file here is Playwright config.ts. So Playwright config.ts will hold all the default configuration of Playwright. Whatever the configurations you have to do which should reflect in the project will be given in the Playwright config.ts. Again, in the upcoming videos, we will be going in further with this Playwright config.ts. Now we have the Playwright installed. Also, we have the sample test. So let us quickly see how to run this test in our local. So let me clear the console and let me run the command to execute the test. So the command to execute the Playwright test is npx playwright test. So let me zoom in. The command is npx playwright test. Npx, which means node package executor. What it needs to execute? It needs to execute the Playwright and the test written inside that. So here, before I'm executing, let me go into the Playwright config.ts. So here you can see it is pointing line number 15 for the test directory to be /test, which means all the files which are written under the test folder will be executed. That's the default location, as I mentioned earlier. So when I say npx playwright test, it will be executing this spec file against all the three browsers, which means Chromium, WebKit and Firefox. So it will be executing this one test against all the browsers. So let me click on enter. So this will be executing all the same test against all the three browsers in locally. So we should be seeing the how much test it has. So if I open the example.spec.ts, you can see it has one and two spec file, two test blocks. So it will be running two tests into three browsers, which means in total we should be seeing 6 executions. That is why you can see that running 6 tests. You can ask me, Vignesh, why it's running 6 tests? Because here there are two tests into three browsers, so total is 6. So here it will run 6 tests with 4 workers. So what it means by workers is workers are nothing but the parallel threads allocated by Playwright in order to run the test as much as parallel possible. This count is being auto kept by the Playwright, depends on your mission, depends on your internet, and all those things will be calculated and it will allocate your workers. Also, you can even hard code the workers in the playwright config.js, playwright config.ts, which you wanted to worker to be 3 or worker to be 10. So depends on your use case, you can configure the worker. If you don't configure any default value for the worker, it will assign the workers depends on your runtime mission configurations. So here you can see it is executing 4 of 6 tests, which means each test is being running in multiple browsers. So let us wait until the test execution is completed, and then we will be seeing the report to make sure if everything is working fine. So let us wait until the execution is completed. There is some issue in the Firefox, which is fine. There could be some intermittent issue, but let us wait until it finished the test and let us see the report. So if I scroll down, it is executing the last test against to the WebKit. So let us wait until the test completes for the WebKit and let us see the local HTML report which is being generated by Playwright. Playwright by default generates a HTML report. You don't need to configure anything, it will auto populate it. So here you can see 4 are passed and 2 are failed, and you can see it automatically opens the report. Why it automatically opens the report? Whenever there is a failure, Playwright will opens the report automatically. So here you can see 2 tests ran in Firefox with yellow color, 2 text fans runs with Chromium, which highlights by blue color, and 2 tests ran with WebKit. So Chromium, WebKit both are passing and the Firefox is failing. If you want more details, if you click on it, you can be seeing more options on why it failed and all those details. For now, we are not going to much detail into about it, just for knowledge purpose I'm sharing it. So if I go inside, you can see the test got timed out, like it can't able to navigate to this website. Could be some intermittent Firefox issue, which is fine, but we understood how to run the test with different browsers, and we took the example of the example sample test which came along with the Playwright installation. So we have seen how to install Playwright and execute the sample test. Next, we will see in quick on what is Lambda test. Lambda test is an online platform to perform cross-platform and cross-browser testing. What it means by that? For example, let's say I'm working for an organization and I want to test my website in multiple browsers. For instance, let's say in Chrome or in Firefox or in, let's say, Edge. I don't need to install all of them manually inside my local laptop. Instead, I can use the Lambda test where I can able to easily test amongst different browsers or different platforms. For example, if I want to test it in Android or iOS, like that, I can test on different platforms offered by the Lambda test. With Lambda test, you can easily execute your web test on different browsers such as Chrome, Safari, Firefox, etc. Similarly, you can also execute your mobile test in both Android and iOS for both the manual and automation testing. So please do check out on lambdatest.com. It is super helpful. Next, we will see how to integrate the Playwright with Lambda test. So we have already created a Playwright folder and we also have installed the Playwright. Now let us see how to configure this with Lambda test and execute the same test against the Lambda test cloud. To do the configuration for Lambda test, what you can do is you can go to the Google and type as Lambda test Playwright GitHub. So write it as lambda test playwright GitHub. So when you search this in Google, and you can go with the first link, which is basically the GitHub repository of this lambda test. So let me go inside that. So basically lambda test has a super detailed documentation on how to do the configurations with your playwright. Now if I scroll down, you can see it has different projects for different languages. So let us scroll down until we find the TypeScript. So this is the TypeScript one, which is playwright test TypeScript. So let me click on that. Why am I going into the GitHub project is because I wanted to get the configuration file. Instead of me writing from scratch, I'm making use of already written GitHub project. So if I scroll down, this is the most important file which we need, which is lambda test setup.ts. So let me copy that, and I'm going to create a similar file like this with the same content in my project which we already created. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a similar file like this. I'm copying the file name and I'm going into my VS Code and in my root folder. It's most important because in the sample GitHub project also they have created under the root folder only. So right click on it and I'm clicking on new file and I'm pasting the file name. So the file content, again I'm going to copy it completely from this GitHub. So I'm copying the raw file and I'm pasting it over here. So after pasting it, there are 4 to 5 steps which you need to be doing carefully in order to make sure that there are no errors in your lambda test configurations. So let me guide you through step by step what are those 4 to 5 steps are. So the first step is to copy the lambda test setup, and once you finish copying the lambda test setup, if you scroll up, you should be seeing an option called as process.n lt username, process.n lt access key. So lt here it's called lambda test. So you have to pass your lambda test username and lambda test access key. So how to get the lambda test username and access key? So go to Google again and in the URL search for lambda test. So in Google just search for lambda test and go to the first link, which is their official website, which is lambdatest.com. So here, if you don't have an account already, you should create an account. You should do the sign in. In my case, I have already have the account signed in, and here by default it will show like this if after you finish signing up. So let me click on dashboard, and once I go into the dashboard, I have to go into my profile section. So how to go to the profile section to get the username and access key? So here you can see I have already logged in. So click on this profile section and go to account settings. So once you go into the account settings, go to the password and security, and here you will be seeing your username and access key. So I'm going to copy both of them and paste it in the files. So instead of process.n.lt username, I'm going to paste it here, and it's a string, so I'm going to paste it in the double quotes. Similarly for the access key, I'm going to paste it in the double quotes. So do not use this access key because after this video has been recorded, I'm going to generate a new access key. So if you even try with this access key will not work. So please use your own access key after logging up in the lambda test. So the first step is to mention your username and access key. That's the first step. Now the second step is that we have to inform to our all the test blocks that hey, from now on don't run the test locally but run it against to your lambda test configurations. So how to say that? It's pretty simple. Go to the test block, and if you scroll up here, you would be seeing that import test expect from playwright test, which means the test is being imported from the playwright test, which I'm going to remove off because I don't want it to be imported from the playwright test. Rather, I want it to be imported from the lambda test configuration. So how to get that? Even that has been clearly mentioned in the GitHub. So let me go back to the GitHub, and I'm going back to the folder, which is playwright test.ts. Let me open the test folder and let me open any random test. And here you can see they have clearly mentioned how to import it. So let me copy this and paste it in my VS Code. So here you can see that now the import is coming from the lambda test setup, which is the file which we just created. So that is step number 2. And what is the step number 3 which we have to do is we have to go to the playwright config.ts, and if I scroll down, here it will be mentioned all the different projects. So here in this case project, which means the different browser where the playwright will be executing. By default, as I mentioned, it will be executing in Chromium, Firefox and WebKit. These are the different projects it will execute, but in our case we have to give a different configuration for lambda test. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to comment this code out, and I'm going to copy the projects from the GitHub again. So let me go back to the project and go to the playwright config.ts, and let me scroll down to the project section. So here you can see it has different projects. For example, Chrome with the latest Mac OS, which means you can run the Chrome in Mac. Similarly, Chrome with latest Windows, and Microsoft Edge with Macs. Like that, they have different combinations. So let me copy this, and it ends until this. I guess I clicked something accidentally. Let me copy it once again. So it starts from this and until this. So let me copy this, and I'm pasting it over here, and make sure you add the command in. So I have all the different configurations with me. Now everything is done. One last step is remaining, is that we have to go to the package.json. In the package.json, if I scroll above, I'll be seeing a section called scripts. So within that, it has no scripts. So I'm going to add one script called as test script. So within the test script, I just need to add as npm run test. That's it. So this is the only command which I need to run. Sorry, not npm run test. It is npx playwright test. So this is the command which I need to add off. So all the configurations are done. So now it's time for us to run the same test against all the browsers mentioned in this playwright config.js. So let me stop this terminal and let me clear this out. Before running the test, let us go back to the Lambda test dashboard. So I'm going back to the Lambda test dashboard, and I have to do a configuration here saying that, hey, Lambda test, from now on you will be getting some requests from my playwright project. So how to say that? So if I go to the automation lambdatest.com/onboarding, which is basically the dashboard link, here it is asking, do you want to do a demo project or configure a test suite? I'm going to say configure my test suite, and here I have to select which is the tool. So in our case it is Playwright, and it is in TypeScript. So I'm gonna click on TypeScript. That's it. So now you can see it is waiting for the test to get started so it can view the test results. So now what I'm gonna do in my terminal, I'm just gonna write npm run test, not npx, because npx is for node package executor. This time I'm gonna do npm run test, because in my package.json I have already added the command for test, and I'm gonna click on enter. So now once I clicked on this, if you have done all the configurations correct as I just mentioned, we should be seeing the execution happens in the Lambda test dashboard. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to the Lambda test dashboard again. I'm going to click on view test results. So it will search for the test for us. If all the connections are correctly established, then we should be start seeing the test reflecting here in the dashboard. So let us wait until it scans and gets the results for us. Let me click on try again, and let me go and see in the Visual Studio Code. The test is not yet started, so that's the reason we can't see it in the dashboard. So let us wait until the test starts. So the test is not yet started, maybe due to my machine issue, I guess. Maybe my machine is slow or something, but ideally it will start in a second. So let us wait until the test starts. So you can see the test starts, and it is saying running 10 tests using 4 workers. Now why it is running 10 tests? Because we have 5 browsers, 5 different browser configuration with 4 workers. So if I go back to the dashboard again, and let me click on try again. So now we should be seeing the results in this dashboard. So you can see it is loading the build, and you can see it started to execute. So all of them are executing. You can see 2 are running and 2 are being queued, which means now all the playwright tests, whatever we did, so whatever we have written so far, it's been running against to the Lambda test configurations and all the different 5 browsers which I have mentioned in the playwright config.file. So here you can see the test finished execution. One test got failed, it seems, so it's okay. Let us see what the test got failed. So if I click on this, you can see it opens clearly. It says get started link. All of them are running against the example.spec.ts as we expected, and all of them are running into different versions of Chrome and different versions of OS. How to know that? For instance, if I click on any of the tests which finish the execution, here you can clearly see which OS it is running against and which browser. For instance, in this case, it's running against the Edge browser with the latest Mac OS 13.2, which means this is a Edge Mac OS combinations. Like this, it is running with all different browser combinations which we asked to. So, which means we have established a successful Lambda test integration with Playwright. The last step which we need to do is, if I go back to this Visual Studio Code and I go back to the Lambda test setup, you can see we are hard coding the username and access key. That's not the right way to do it. Always it should be driven from the environmental variables. So let us see how to do it very easily by using something called .env. .env is nothing but a dependency which will help us to store and drive all the environmental variables. So I need to install the .env. How to install the .env is npm install -d.env. So npm install, which means it will install the dependency, -d, which means it will save the dependency details in the package.json, and the dependency name is .env. So let us install this. And once we finish install, we just need to create a simple .env file. So let us wait until the installation is completed. Installation is completed. If I go to the package.json, you can see the .env is installed. So now in the root folder again, I'm going to create a new file called as .env. Make sure you're entering dot first and env. Now within this .env, what I'm going to do, I'm going to place two fields in that. What are those two fields, Vignesh? The two fields are username and password for the LT. So Lambda test username and Lambda test password. So within this, I'm going to move the hard-coded value of what we kept in our Lambda test setup. So I'm just going to the Lambda test setup. So this is the username. Let me put it back. This is the username and this is the access key. So I'm going to paste both of this in our .env file. So this is the access key and this is the username. So let me paste the username. Done. So now the username and access key is been mentioned in the .env file. How to refer that back in the Lambda test setup? So what you have to do is you have to first import this .env in this file. So what you have to do is go to the import statement and you just need to add two lines within that. Both of those lines are to import the .env and to configure them. So these are the two lines, which is import .env from the package .env and we are configuring .env.config. Now, once we have this, what we have to do is we have to remove the hard-coded value and we have to refer by using the process.env. So how to do that is by this. So what we have to do is instead of the hard-coded value, we have to refer as process.env.lt username, and for access key, it's process.env.lt access key. That's it. So this is the only thing which we need to change for our Lambda test setup. So if I run the test, again the test will pass because it's going to fetch the username and access key from the .env file. So this is how we will integrate the Playwright with the Lambda test. So thank you everyone for watching this video. I hope this is very insightful and interesting for you. If you wanted to know further, follow the rest of the other videos which is going to be added as part of this playlist. Please also take a moment to visit to this community.lambdatest.com and lambdatest.com/certifications to know more offers given by the Lambda test. Also, please visit to github.com/lambdatest to know all the projects mentioned in the Lambda test GitHub account. Thanks everyone for watching this.